The hunter's mistake. The crisp Alaskan air bit through Maya Rodriguez's thermal jacket as she adjusted her camera's telephoto lens. 3 days she'd been tracking this particular wolf pack, hoping to capture their hunting patterns for National Geographic. The morning fog clung to the ground in wispy tendrils, creating an ethereal atmosphere that would make for perfect photographs. 20 years in the Marines hadn't prepared her for the solitude of wildlife photography, but after 4 tours in conflict zones, she'd found peace in documenting nature rather than fighting against it. Her fingers, calloused from both trigger and shutter, moved with practiced precision across the camera's controls. The wolf pack had led her deeper into the wilderness than usual, away from her usual territory near the Denali National Park boundary. Something about their behavior seemed off. They were agitated, moving with purpose rather than their typical hunting patterns. A flash of movement caught her eye, but it wasn't the wolves. Through her viewfinder, she glimpsed something that defied explanation. The figure moved with liquid grace, its form seeming to shift and ripple like mercury in the early morning light. Maya lowered her camera, heart pounding. Her hand instinctively moved to the rifle slung across her back, a habit she'd never quite shaken. The thing was tall, easily 7 feet, with a body structure that seemed to ignore conventional anatomy. In the fog, its outline wavered like a mirage. Maya had documented every predator in these woods, but this was something else entirely. Years of military training kicked in. Threat assessment. Strategic positioning. The wind was in her favor, carrying her scent away from the creature. She unslung her rifle, muscle memory taking over as she brought the scope to her eye. Through the magnified view, she could see more details that only confirmed this was no known animal. Its skin had a metallic sheen, patterns flowing across its surface like oil on water. What she had initially taken for clothing appeared to be part of its body, organic armor that shifted with each movement. The head was elongated, with no discernible eyes, yet Maya felt certain it was aware of its surroundings. The creature moved toward something partially hidden in the underbrush, what looked like twisted metal glinting in the weak morning light. Maya's finger tensed on the trigger. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't natural, and it was in her territory. The shot echoed through the valley like a thunderclap. The creature jerked, a sound unlike anything Maya had ever heard tearing through the morning silence, not quite a scream, not quite a mechanical screech. It staggered, silvery fluid spraying from its shoulder, and Maya's blood ran cold as it turned toward her position. Threat neutralized, she muttered to herself, taking aim for a second shot. But the words died in her throat as the creature's form began to change. The metallic surface of its body rippled and flowed, revealing something underneath that stopped Maya's heart for a beat. The alien appearance melted away like frost in sunlight, leaving behind a form that was startlingly humanoid, though still clearly not human. Wait. The voice was melodic but distorted, like someone speaking through water. I mean no harm. Maya kept her rifle trained on the figure, years of combat experience warring with her curiosity. Don't move, she commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The being remained still, silver blood seeping between fingers pressed against its shoulder. Its skin was now a deep violet color, marked with luminescent patterns that pulsed with each breath. I apologize for my defensive camouflage, it said, the words becoming clearer as it spoke. It's an automatic response to potential threats. Maya took a step closer, rifle still raised. What are you? My name is KYR9. I'm a scout for the resistance. The alien's eyes, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle pattern, fixed on Maya. And you just shot one of the few allies your species has in this sector of the galaxy. Hidden truths. Maya's cabin wasn't built for visitors, especially not 7-foot-tall aliens with bleeding shoulders. She guided KYR9 through the door, her rifle still within easy reach. The alien's luminescent patterns had dimmed, and its breathing had become labored during their trek through the woods. Sit, she commanded, gesturing to her worn leather couch. Let me look at that wound. KYR9 sank onto the couch with an unnervingly fluid grace despite the injury. Your projectile weapon is surprisingly effective against my biological armor. Most primitive technologies barely leave a scratch. Maya rummaged through her first aid kit, trying not to take offense at the word primitive. Lucky shot. Now, want to tell me what a scout for the resistance is doing in the Alaskan wilderness? The alien's three eyes blinked in sequence as Maya began cleaning the wound. The silver blood had an odd consistency, somewhere between mercury and water, but it responded to pressure and gauze like normal blood. I was searching for my ship's emergency beacon, KYR9 explained, wincing as Maya applied antiseptic. My crash landing scattered components across several kilometers. Without it, I cannot contact my allies. And these allies are a coalition of species fighting against the Nexus Collective. KYR9's patterns pulsed with what Maya interpreted as frustration. The collective believes that emerging civilizations like yours pose a threat to galactic stability. They prefer to eliminate potential problems before they develop. Maya's hands stilled. Eliminate? Your species is at a crucial point in its development. You've mastered basic spaceflight, you're beginning to understand quantum mechanics, and your technological progress is accelerating exponentially. KYR9's voice took on a darker tone. The collective sees humanity as a virus about to go pandemic. And the resistance disagrees. We believe in cooperation, not extinction. Many of us have studied your species. You're innovative, adaptable, and surprisingly resilient. The collective fears these qualities. We see them as valuable traits for allies. Maya finished bandaging the wound, her mind racing with implications. How long do we have before the collective arrives? Months, perhaps weeks. My mission was to gather intelligence on their invasion plans, but my ship was detected. KYR9's patterns shifted to darker hues. The hunters who shot me down will return once they realize I survived. A familiar tension settled in Maya's shoulders, the same feeling she'd had before major operations in the Marines. These hunters, what are we dealing with? Cybernetically enhanced mercenaries. They use technology that would seem like magic to you. Cloaking devices, neural disruptors, quantum weaponry. And what do we have? KYR9's patterns flickered with what might have been amusement. A primitive projectile weapon that somehow pierced my armor, your clearly extensive combat training, and whatever remains of my ship's systems, if we can find them before the hunters do. Maya moved to her gun cabinet, unlocking it with practiced efficiency. I've got more than one primitive weapon. And I know these woods better than any off-world hunter. She began checking her arsenal, rifles, shotguns, and a few pieces of equipment from her military days that weren't strictly legal for civilians. You're offering to help. KYR9 sounded surprised. Even after I revealed that your entire species is in danger. Especially because of that. Maya loaded magazines with mechanical precision. Besides, I shot you. Consider this making amends. A low humming filled the cabin, making the windows vibrate slightly. KYR9's patterns flared with alarm. They're here sooner than expected. The hunters must have tracked my blood trail. Maya moved to the window, staying in the shadows. Three shapes shimmered into visibility outside, humanoid figures in armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with an unnatural precision that spoke of mechanical enhancement. Your weapons won't be effective against their armor, KYR9 warned, attempting to stand. Stay down, Maya ordered. You're in no condition to fight. She reached into a locked chest beside her gun cabinet and pulled out a device she'd never thought she'd use again. Besides, these hunters aren't the only ones with advanced technology. KYR9's eyes fixed on the device. What is that? Experimental EMP generator. Borrowed it from a classified operation before I left the Marines. Never returned it because I didn't trust how it might be used. She began calibrating the device. Think it might level the playing field a bit? For the first time, KYR9's patterns showed something that looked like hope. If you can disrupt their systems, yes, that would make this a more equal fight. Maya checked her ammunition one last time. Good. Because I'm not letting them take you, and I'm definitely not letting them wipe out my species. She moved toward the back door, already planning her route through the familiar terrain. Time to show these hunters what happens when they pick the wrong prey. Outside, snow began to fall, thick flakes that would cover their tracks, if they survived long enough to make any. Maya felt a familiar calm settle over her, the clarity that came with combat. She had an injured alien to protect, an invasion to prevent, and 3 cyborg hunters to eliminate. The chase begins. The EMP burst lit up the Alaskan night like artificial aurora, sending cascading waves of blue-white energy through the falling snow. Maya watched through her rifle scope as 2 of the hunters staggered, their armor systems flickering and sparking. The third, unfortunately, seemed unaffected. Adaptive shielding, KYR9 whispered from behind her. They learn quickly. Maya didn't waste breath responding. She squeezed the trigger twice, sending rounds into the vulnerable joints of the disabled hunter's armor. They went down hard, but the third hunter, the shielded one, moved with terrifying speed, closing the distance to their position. We need to move, Maya hissed, grabbing her go bag with one hand and KYR9's arm with the other. There's a system of caves 2 miles north. We can lose them in the limestone tunnels. They ran through the woods, Maya guiding them through paths she'd memorized over years of wildlife tracking. Behind them, an otherworldly howl split the night, the remaining hunter calling for reinforcements. More will come, KYR9 said between breaths, his wound leaving a trail of silvery droplets in the snow. The collective doesn't tolerate failure. Then we better not fail. Maya pulled them behind a massive fallen spruce as something whizzed past, a projectile that turned the tree behind them into frozen splinters. What the hell was that? Cryo-round. It flash freezes organic matter. Very effective against. KYR9's patterns suddenly flared with alarm. Down. Maya dropped instinctively as a net of crackling energy passed overhead, turning the air itself into ozone. The hunter had flanked them, using technology that bent light around its armor like a digital chameleon. Maya rolled to her feet, switching tactics. Her military training kicked in, when faced with a technologically superior opponent, use the environment to your advantage. She fired 3 rapid shots into the snow-laden branches above the hunter's position. The snow crashed down, briefly outlining the cloaked figure. That moment was all she needed. The .338 Lapua Magnum round from her rifle struck the hunter's helmet with enough force to crack its adaptive shielding. The creature inside screamed, a sound like grinding metal, and its cloaking field failed completely. Maya got her first clear look at their pursuer. The hunter's armor was a marvel of alien engineering, but beneath the cracked faceplate, she saw something that looked almost insectoid, with compound eyes and mandibles. Praetoris, KYR9 said, his voice heavy with recognition. Elite hunters. They won't stop coming. They'll have to catch us first. Maya reloaded as they resumed their run through the deepening snow. What's in that data cache that's worth all this? Proof, KYR9 managed between labored breaths. The collective isn't just planning to eliminate humanity. They're harvesting pre-spaceflight civilizations across the galaxy, using them as test subjects for biological weapons. Maya's blood ran cold despite their pace. Biological weapons. They're creating a virus that targets specific genetic markers. They could wipe out any species that doesn't meet their criteria for civilized development. KYR9's patterns pulsed with what she now recognized as anger. Humanity is meant to be their latest test case. They reached the cave system as the storm intensified. Maya led them through the entrance she'd discovered years ago while tracking a wounded bear. The limestone tunnels were a maze, but she'd mapped them extensively during her darker days, when she'd needed somewhere to hide from her own memories of war. "Stop," she whispered, pulling KYR9 into a side tunnel. "Your wound's getting worse." In the dim light of KYR9's bioluminescent patterns, she could see the silver blood had soaked through the bandages. The alien's 3 eyes were dimmer than before, and his temperature felt lower. "I need to tell you something," KYR9 said, his voice barely audible over the howling wind at the cave's entrance. "The data cache, it's not just stored in my ship's computers. It's encoded in my genetic structure. If I die, the evidence dies with me." Maya checked her remaining ammunition while processing this information. "That's why they want you intact. They could have just bombed us from orbit otherwise." "Correct. The Praetors are capable of extracting information directly from a subject's cellular memory. It's not a pleasant process." A sound echoed through the caves, the scrape of armored boots on stone. The hunter had recovered and followed their trail. Maya made a quick decision. "There's an underground river half a mile deeper in the cave system. It feeds into a larger network that comes out near an old military bunker." She handed KYR9 her backup pistol. "Think you can swim?" "My species evolved in liquid methane," KYR9 said, checking the weapon with surprising familiarity. "Water will be a luxury." More sounds of pursuit, closer now. Maya could see faint lights reflecting off the cave walls, probably infrared scanners searching for their heat signatures. She reached into her pack and pulled out her last surprise, a handful of thermal decoy charges, another souvenir from her military days. "When I give the signal, head straight down that tunnel. Don't stop, don't look back. The river crossing is behind a formation that looks like 3 twisted pillars. I'll be right behind you." "You're not expendable, Maya Rodriguez," KYR9 said firmly. "The Resistance needs humans like you. Good thing I'm not planning on dying then." She squeezed his arm. "Ready?" The alien's patterns swirled with determination. "Ready." Maya activated the thermal decoys and threw them down several different tunnels. Then she reached into her jacket and pulled out a final device, a small sonic emitter that would play havoc with the cave's limestone structure. "Now," she whispered. As KYR9 disappeared down the tunnel, Maya set the sonic device's timer. The hunter was close enough now that she could hear its breathing apparatus. She took careful aim at the ceiling where she knew the limestone was weakest. One shot to change the future of 2 species. She squeezed the trigger and ran. Underground resistance. The underground bunker looked abandoned, exactly as it was meant to. Maya punched a code into what appeared to be a rusted keypad, water still dripping from her clothes. Behind her, KYR9's bioluminescent patterns cast shifting shadows on the snow-covered ground. "Your military installation is well hidden," the alien observed, his 3 eyes scanning the perimeter. "The Praetors passed over this area twice without detecting it. That's because it's not military, not officially anyway." The door opened with a hydraulic hiss that belied its decrepit appearance. "Welcome to Project Nightwatch." They descended into a facility that clearly hadn't been abandoned at all. LED lights flickered to life, revealing a command center filled with sophisticated monitoring equipment. Screens displayed satellite feeds, atmospheric readings, and what looked like deep space telemetry. Maya. A tall man with graying hair and a prosthetic arm emerged from a side room. "The sensors picked up some crazy readings from your..." He stopped short at the sight of KYR9. "Well, guess that explains the energy signatures." "Colonel Chen," Maya nodded. "Meet KYR9. He's just confirmed everything we've been tracking for the past 5 years. They're called the Nexus Collective," KYR9 said, studying the facility's equipment with interest. "And they've designated Earth as their next testing ground." More people emerged from various rooms, all former military or intelligence operatives who'd noticed patterns others had dismissed. Dr. Isabella Reyes, who tracked unusual atmospheric disturbances. Captain Marcus Wong, who'd investigated disappearances of scientists working on breakthrough technologies. Lieutenant Sarah Hassan, whose drone had captured images of something impossible over the Arctic Circle. How long have you known? KYR-9 asked, his patterns shifting with curiosity. We didn't know exactly, Colonel Chen replied, leading them to a central briefing area. But we've been gathering evidence of extraterrestrial activity for years. Unexplained phenomena, technological anomalies, missing persons cases that didn't add up. We knew something was coming. We just didn't know what. Maya watched as Dr. Reyes began treating KYR-9's wound with a mix of conventional medicine and some decidedly unconventional equipment. The colonel created night watch after his last deployment. Said he saw something in Afghanistan that changed everything he thought he knew about warfare. The collective was testing smaller weapons there, KYR-9 confirmed. Studying human response to various stimuli. Your species is remarkably adaptable, it's one of the reasons they consider you such a threat. Captain Wong pulled up a holographic display showing global hotspots of unusual activity. These incidents have been increasing over the past month. We thought it was preparation for first contact, but it's actually target acquisition, Maya finished grimly. They're mapping population centers, defense installations, probably analyzing our response patterns. Correct. KYR-9's patterns pulsed with urgency. But the data I carry proves they've violated multiple galactic treaties. If we can transmit it to the coalition of free systems, the collective's operation would be shut down immediately. Lieutenant Hassan frowned at her monitors. We're picking up increased activity in low Earth orbit. Multiple objects using some kind of stealth technology, but our new quantum sensors can detect their wake. More hunters, KYR-9 said. They'll have called in elite teams by now. The Praetorus we encountered was just the beginning. Colonel Chen's expression hardened. How long until they find this facility? Hours at most. Their scanning technology is incredibly advanced. Then we work fast. Maya moved to a secure terminal. Colonel, remember that transmission array we salvaged from the crash site in Nevada? The one that nearly fried half our systems when we tried to power it up. Yeah, I remember. KYR-9, could you use that to boost a signal to your allies? The alien examined the equipment displays. Possibly, but I'd need to modify it significantly. And we'd have to defend this position long enough for the transmission to go through. How long? At least 30 minutes of continuous broadcast. The data is extensive. Maya shared a look with Colonel Chen. They both knew what holding position against advanced alien forces would mean. The colonel nodded slightly and opened a weapons locker. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, welcome to humanity's last stand. Or first stand, depending on how you look at it. Dr. Reyes, get that transmitter modified. Captain Wong, Lieutenant Hassan, begin evacuation protocols for our backup sites. Maya. Perimeter defense, she finished, already checking her weapons. Just like Damascus. Worse than Damascus, the colonel corrected. At least there we knew what we were fighting. KYR-9's patterns swirled with what Maya now recognized as determination. I can help you understand their tactics, their weaknesses. My people have been fighting them for centuries. Good. Colonel Chen distributed advanced weaponry, prototypes reverse-engineered from recovered alien tech. Because we're about to make first contact into first combat. The facility's sensors began pinging with increasing frequency. Above ground, something massive was moving into position. Maya could feel it through the soles of her boots, a deep thrumming that made her teeth ache. Multiple contacts, Lieutenant Hassan reported. They're deploying some kind of energy shield around the entire area. Trying to box us in. No, KYR-9 corrected, his patterns darkening. They're creating a containment zone. What happens here won't be witnessed by the outside world. Maya checked the charge on her experimental pulse rifle. Then we better make it count. Doctor, how long until that transmitter is ready? 10 minutes to complete the modifications, Dr. Reyes called from her workstation. But KYR9's genetic data will take time to integrate with the system. The ceiling shuddered as something heavy landed above them. Dust filtered down through suddenly flickering lights. The hunter-killers had arrived. Time to earn our combat pay, Colonel Chen said dryly. We don't get paid, Captain Wong reminded him, charging his weapon. Then let's earn our place in history. Maya moved to her defensive position, nodding to KYR9. Ready to show us what a human-alien alliance can do. The aliens' patterns pulsed with an almost electrical intensity. Ready to show the collective they chose the wrong species to test. Above them, the hunters began cutting through the bunker's armor plating. The real war for Earth's future was about to begin. Dawn of Unity. The first hunter crashed through the ceiling in a shower of sparks and debris. Maya's pulse rifle caught it mid-descent, the experimental weapon proving its worth as the alien's adaptive armor overloaded and failed. But there were more right behind it. 15 minutes until transmission completion, Dr. Reyes called out from behind her barricade of servers and equipment. KYR9 stood beside her, his patterns pulsing rapidly as he fed data into the modified transmitter. Contact left. Lieutenant Hassan's warning was followed by the distinctive sound of her quantum-charged rounds finding their marks. 2 more hunters fell, but the others were learning, adapting their shields to the human weapons. They're hurting us, Colonel Chen observed, falling back to a more defensible position. Trying to force us away from the transmitter. Maya saw it too, the hunters' movements weren't just an assault, they were a carefully choreographed pattern designed to separate the defenders. Wong, Hassan, collapsed to the center. Don't let them split us up. A new sound cut through the chaos of battle, a high-pitched whine that made Maya's combat instinct scream in warning. Down, she yelled, just as a pulse of energy swept through the chamber. Everything electronic flickered, including KYR9's bioluminescent patterns. No. Dr. Reyes frantically worked at her console. They're trying to disrupt the transmission. If we lose power now. We won't. Colonel Chen pulled what looked like a car battery from under a desk. Backup system, designed to work through an EMP. Maya, buy us time to hook it up. Maya was already moving, her rifle spitting pulses of energy at the advancing hunters. She'd fought in urban combat, desert warfare, and jungle operations, but nothing had prepared her for the fluid grace of these alien warriors. They moved like mercury, their armor adapting and shifting to each new threat. Maya. KYR9's voice carried over the battlefield. Their command unit, the one with the red markings. If we can eliminate it, the others will lose tactical coordination. She spotted it, a hunter slightly larger than the others, its armor marked with crimson symbols that seemed to flow like blood. It was directing the others with subtle gestures, orchestrating the assault with terrible efficiency. I see it, she confirmed. But that armor looks heavy-duty. Our weapons barely scratch it. Then we do this together. KYR9's patterns flared brilliantly. My people have a saying, the strongest metal is forged in alliance. Understanding dawned. Colonel. We need a distraction. Something big. Chen grinned, pulling a device from his tactical vest. Been saving this for a special occasion. He held up what looked like a miniature sun, an experimental photon grenade. Might want to close your eyes. The blast transformed the underground bunker into noon in the Sahara. The hunters' optical systems overloaded, their coordinated attack faltering. In that moment of chaos, Maya and KYR9 moved as one. The alien's biological armor might have been damaged, but he still possessed incredible strength. He clasped his hands together, forming a platform. Maya ran, stepped into his grip, and felt herself launched upward with impossible force. Time seemed to slow. She saw the command unit looking up, its adaptive armor beginning to compensate for the light blast. But it hadn't expected a human to come flying through the air like a missile. Maya's pulse rifle was already aligned with the weak point KYR-9 had identified, the junction between helmet and collar. One shot. One chance to prove humanity's worth as allies rather than test subjects. The pulse round struck true, finding the microscopic gap in the hunter's defenses. The command unit fell, its armor systems cascading into failure. The effect on the other hunters was immediate, their movements became erratic, uncoordinated. Transmission at 90%. Dr. Reyes called out. Just a few more minutes. The remaining hunters fought on, but without central coordination, they were vulnerable to the defenders' coordinated fire. One by one, they fell to the combined tactics of human ingenuity and alien knowledge. Transmission complete. The doctor's voice was triumphant. Data packet sent. KYR-9's patterns pulsed with joy. The coalition ships are responding. They're entering the system now. Through the hole in the ceiling, Maya could see the sky changing. Massive shapes descended through the clouds, ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. But unlike the hunters' vessels, these radiated not threat but protection. The collective ships are retreating, Lieutenant Hassan reported from her monitors. They're running. Maya helped KYR-9 to his feet, both of them battered but alive. So what happens now? To Earth, I mean. Now. KYR-9's patterns shifted to colors she'd never seen before. Now your species takes its rightful place among the stars. Not as test subjects, but as equals. The coalition has been waiting for a species like yours, one that proves advancement doesn't have to mean losing what makes you unique. Colonel Chen approached, looking up at the ships now visible through the broken ceiling. Will they all look like you? Our new allies? No, KYR-9's patterns rippled with what might have been laughter. Some look far stranger. But you'll find we have more in common than you might think. A desire for freedom. A willingness to fight for what's right. And now, thanks to this battle, a shared victory. Maya looked around at her fellow defenders, humans who had prepared for this day without ever really knowing if it would come. Then at KYR-9, an alien she'd shot only days ago, now standing as a brother in arms. You know, she said, when I was tracking what I thought was a monster through those woods, I never imagined it would lead to this. And I never imagined being shot by a primitive weapon would lead to saving both our peoples. KYR-9's patterns formed complex shapes she was beginning to recognize as happiness. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson here, never judge a species by their technology, but by their heart. That's surprisingly human wisdom, Colonel Chen observed. No, KYR-9 corrected. That's universal wisdom. And now, finally, the universe is ready to share it with humanity. Above them, the coalition ships took up protective positions around Earth. The dawn of a new era was breaking, not with an invasion or subjugation, but with an alliance born in battle and sealed with shared sacrifice. Maya looked at her rifle, then at the stars now visible through the broken bunker. She had a feeling her days of wildlife photography were over. The universe had much bigger game to track. The end.